Hey guys, what's up and welcome back to the channel. In today's episode, we're going to be comparing the iPhone 15 Pro to my $7,000 camera setup, and we're going to see, can you really see the difference? So write down which shots you thought were shot with the iPhone 15 Pro and which ones were shot with the A7S3 and the 1635 G Master lens, and let's see how many of you guys get wrong. Because I swear, it's not going to be easy. Okay, how many of you saw actually a clear difference? Or was it actually pretty hard to figure out what shots were shot on the iPhone 15 Pro and which shots were shot on the A7S3? Now, just to remind you, my $7,000 camera setup, the A7S3 with the 1635 G Master lens, that's something I'm using on a daily basis, my professional camera setup. And we're comparing this to an iPhone, something that's a mobile phone in your pocket. So let's watch through the footage again. I'm gonna reveal to you guys which clips were shot on the iPhone 15 Pro and which ones were shot on the Sony A7S3 with the 1635 G Master lens. It's honestly crazy because I couldn't even tell which clips were shot with the iPhone 15 Pro or which ones were shot on the Sony A7S3, and I was the one who actually shot this footage. I think one of the most game-changing features in the iPhone 15 Pro was the Apple ProRes Log, because I think this feature has closed the gap the most between mobile and professional mirrorless cameras, because back in the day, no matter how amazing or high quality the mobile footage was, it still had that ugly digital sharpness that just gave it away that it was a mobile phone. But now with ProRes Log, it's giving a really nice image to color grade with. Oh, and by the way, if you enjoyed the color grading on all of this footage, the secret sauce was my brand new Cinemalite collection, which we'll talk about later, don't worry. Okay, so how many did you get wrong? I bet you didn't think it would be this hard. I didn't think that it would be this hard, and I was the one who shot the footage, but even I made some mistakes when I was trying to figure out which clip was shot on which camera. It was especially hard with the wide and ultra wide shots. I feel like there's not that much of a difference between the iPhone 15 Pro wide shots and then the wide shots on the Sony A7S III. But then there was much more of a difference when you, for example, look up the close-up portrait of me with the iPhone 15 Pro. It had that digital sharp look still, and as well, the shallow depth of field maybe doesn't look as natural, whereas a portrait shot of me shot on the Sony A7S III just looks a lot more natural and good looking. But one thing that I did find really crazy when comparing these two clips was the dynamic range, because the shot of me with the Sony A7S III, even though I was looking good in that shot, but the background was blown out, whereas with the iPhone 15 Pro, you have detail still in the sky and the tree and the leaves. There's colors and there's an image there, whereas with the Sony A7S III, it's just blown out. You're not seeing anything there. That just shows the power of computational photography in the iPhones, because they're able to take multiple exposures, put it together, and get that nice high dynamic range in the footage. Whereas a camera like the Sony A7S III is relying completely on their sensor, but they're not using software to put multiple exposures together. Another shot that just blew my mind away was this shot of me riding my one wheel into the shot. That was shot on the Sony A7S III, and then I shot the follow-up shot with the iPhone 15 Pro, a more close-up, and they just so seamlessly work together. The colors, the image, they look pretty much the same. I wouldn't be able to tell that one was filmed on a $7,000 camera setup and the other one was filmed on an iPhone, something that we all own and have in our pockets. And that's what honestly gets me so excited about the iPhone 15 Pro, because you can have this in your pocket at all times and it's your B camera. You can mix and match footage from the iPhone 15 Pro and then use it alongside, for example, your A7S III, which is super handy because I'm not always carrying my A7S III with me, but I do always have my iPhone 15 Pro in my pocket, meaning at all times I have a great camera if I want to capture a moment or get a shot for the future. Now, even though I've been praising the iPhone 15 Pro and talking about how amazing it is and how the gap between mobile and mirrorless has just gotten narrower and narrower, there are still limitations of using something like the iPhone 15 Pro. And the first thing that comes to mind is the fact that you don't have a flipped LCD screen, so you're kind of going blind into things. You don't know what the exposure is looking like. You don't know how is the composition. Or for example, when I had the iPhone 15 Pro, on my little tripod. I was trying to get super low to the ground because I wasn't able to get the screen. It was literally lying on the ground, and it would have just been easier to have some sort of screen where I can see my footage. So it's not always so practical filming with the iPhone, whereas with a camera like the A7S III, you have this nice flipped LCD screen that you can at all angles see whether you're filming yourself or when you're filming from below. You can look and see how is the composition and how is your exposure. Now, some people said that you can use the Apple Watch with the iPhone 15 Pro in order to be able to see what your image is looking like, and that would be really interesting to test out to see would that actually be a viable option to fix that problem with the iPhone 15 Pro. Another limitation of the iPhone 15 Pro is low light situations. This phone and camera works great when you have a lot of light and it's ideal shooting conditions. But the moment you start shooting with the iPhone 15 Pro in low light situations, it just doesn't look as good anymore. And I noticed it has this weird jitter, and I think it might be that the shutter speed is just going so low in order to get more light that it has this awkward micro jitter shake. Whereas with the A7S III, because it has dual native ISO, you can crank the ISO to 12,800 and shoot in low light situations with a really nice image still coming to camera. So this camera works when you have the right conditions, but it's not so versatile, whereas something like the A7S III is gonna perform in all conditions, whether you have a lot of light or in very low light conditions, which is important when you're a content creator. And last is file sizes. If I was using the iPhone 15 Pro as my main camera, I would be spending so much money on storage because the file sizes of the Apple ProRes Log are huge. Just recently on my Iceland trip, I by accident left the phone recording at the end of a clip in my pocket for a few minutes and looked at my computer, and the file size was something like 50 gigabytes. It was just insane. So shooting with the Apple ProRes Log on the iPhone 15 Pro, it's gonna take a whole bunch of storage space, which means a lot of money. And as well, it's quite slow in the transfer process. Even when I was transferring all the footage from my Iceland trip from the iPhone 15 Pro to my MacBook, it took a long time to do that, and that can be a hassle if you're shooting a lot and you want to be able to transfer the footage quickly and start editing right away. So there are some limitations to something like the iPhone 15 Pro. Now, even though there are limitations of using the iPhone 15 Pro as your main camera, that doesn't mean there's not a lot of features that I'm really excited about in this mobile phone with a camera. And the first being ProRes Log. In my opinion, this was the one feature in the iPhone 15 Pro that was the most exciting, because in the past, no matter how much they focused on resolutions and all these things to make the footage look better, it always still had that digital sharpness, which just was a dead giveaway that that's been shot on a mobile phone. But now with ProRes Log, it comes out really nice, flat, desaturated, where then you have the flexibility in post to color grade it into the direction that you'd want. Whereas before, Apple was already placing into the footage a certain amount of contrast and saturation and sharpness that you didn't have much of a choice to impact afterwards. Now, for some of you, you might be intimidated by a log picture profile because you don't know how to color correct or color grade it, but they've actually made it really easy. For example, if you are a Final Cut Pro user, you can just drag and drop your footage into the timeline and then go to the information tab and go down to basic, select extended, and then from there it's gonna give you the option of choosing a camera LUT. And in Final Cut Pro, they're actually giving you the Apple Log camera LUT. So you just turn that on and voila, your ProRes Log footage is now color corrected to Rec. 79, which means the normal contrast and saturation. And if you're not using Final Cut Pro, don't worry, there are other ways to do this. I actually found in my Cinema LUT collection, my S-Log3 to Rec. 79 conversion LUT, basically the LUT that I'm using to color correct my Sony A7S III log footage. That same conversion LUT actually works really well on the iPhone 15 Pro. And my only explanation for that is that these both have Sony sensors. So maybe that same color picture profile for my Sony A7S III works well on the Apple iPhone 15 Pro. So if you don't use Final Cut Pro, you can grab my Cinema LUT collection. It's gonna have the S-Log3 conversion LUT. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna just throw a custom LUT onto that clip, choose S-Log3 to Rec. 79 conversion LUT, and voila, it's now no longer really flat and desaturated. It's that normal contrast and saturation. And then from there, you can add one of the grading LUTs for my pack. I, for example, love Cinema LUT 1. It gives that nice teal and orange to the footage, so you're gonna throw that onto another custom LUT. And the key with creating LUTs is don't leave it at 100%. Bring it back down to maybe 60, 70%, and look at that before and after. This is how the footage is looking with my Cinema LUT collection. So if you haven't heard about that, you're struggling with color grading, highly recommend. Check that link in my description. The Cinema LUT collection is gonna help you grade your footage. The second thing, which I already mentioned about the iPhone 15 Pro that I love, is the dynamic range. It is insane what they're able to do with software and how you're able to get so many parts of the image exposed even in really harsh conditions. So that's something really exciting about the iPhone 15 Pro. And then the stabilization, it's insane. You can just be holding this camera. It looks like you're using a gimbal. And even crazier, if you use the active mode, you can be literally filming with the zoom lens. It looks super shaky, but then afterwards, it looks super nice and smooth. So stabilization on the iPhone 15 Pro is crazy. You don't need a gimbal, you don't need anything like that. You can just film everything handheld and it's gonna be super stable. And the last and probably most practical reason why I love the iPhone 15 Pro is that it's always on you. I always have my phone in my pocket, meaning I always have a great camera to film with whenever I need. There might be moments in my day where I just want to capture a few clips, and I have my iPhone 15 Pro on me, meaning I can always film some epic cinematic footage. Whereas I'm not always carrying my Sony A7S III around, so that's probably one of the main reasons why I'm loving the iPhone 15 Pro. I always have a great camera in my pocket. So yeah, those are my thoughts of the iPhone 15 Pro. That was the comparison between the iPhone 15 Pro and my $7,000 camera setup. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this little challenge, and if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe because I'd love for you to be benefiting from the content that I'm creating on a weekly basis. So welcome to this community. Thank you for watching this video, and we'll see you next time.